Hey everybody, it is Thursday night at 8 p.m. and I am really excited to be talking with all of you about how to repay your debt. Really how to slay your debt in 2019 in a very sustainable way. So I'm going to share with you 5 different questions that I would encourage you to ask if debt is a priority for you. But before we do that, I want to let you know that in the post of today's live, which I know maybe some of you don't check, there's going to be a lot of great resources about debt repayment. So take a look at that post. I'll be sharing with you some of my blog articles related to debt repayment that can really help you make your debt repayment goal or your New Year's resolution a possibility this year. This topic I know is very, very personal, so I also encourage you to send in your questions. And I just realized I forgot to introduce myself, so that's part of being live. I am Grace Duddy Pomeroy. I'm a financial educator, speaker, and coach. And you can certainly find more about me out on my website, www.gracepomeroy.com. And that's Pomeroy with no E, P-O-M-R-O-Y. Alrighty, so let's dive into debt. And if you've got questions about your debt, please submit them. The biggest question that I encourage people to ask when it comes to your debt is, how much do you actually owe? And particularly, what's your interest rate? I find that a lot of people who want to repay their debt are a little bit nervous about their debt. They don't quite want to take a look at the numbers. They just want to put that debt on auto pay and hope that it suddenly goes away. But honestly, if you want to create a sustainable plan, you need to be conscious of how much you owe and how much interest you are paying per month. What is that interest rate? Now, especially when it comes to credit card debt, you may find that interest rate is pretty high. I know on one of my credit cards that I have, my interest rate is 18%. It is a lot. Now, I don't have debt on that card. That's not a card that I would ever carry debt on, but it's a pretty high interest rate. Whereas in student loans, you could see 6%, you could see 3%, and anywhere in between. You can also see some high interest rate student loans if it's a private student loan. The second question I encourage you to ask is, should debt repayment even be a priority for you? Oftentimes people assume that this debt is just weighing on you. It's this monkey on your back, which means you've just got to get rid of it as fast as you can. But in reality, you need to look at your entire financial picture when it comes to debt repayment. Here are a couple of things to check off your list before you dive into debt repayment full bore. First, create a realistic budget. Make sure that you know how much money is coming in and how much money is going out, and you've got some left over there to be able to support those debt repayments. If you're behind on your bills, or you're constantly overdrafting your account, you need to get your budget in order before you start repaying debt. Number 2, start an emergency fund. Now, there's a variety of different views on whether or not you should pay off debt versus start an emergency fund, but I am thoroughly in the camp of getting that emergency fund started first. Now, notice I didn't say completely fund it, I just said start it. That means you're going to want to have $500 to $1,000, depending on the size of your family, ready and available so that if something comes up that's unexpected, you can pay for it out of your emergency fund and not have to dig yourself into a deeper debt hole. Number 3, this is why I asked you to take a look at that debt interest rate. Pay off that high interest debt. That's debt with an interest rate of 10% or more. Now, generally that's associated with private student loans or with credit cards. Next, after you got that high interest rate debt out of the way, start saving for retirement. Now, this could be something as small as 1% per month being taken out of your paycheck, 2%, 3%. If your employer offers a matching contribution, make sure you're meeting it. Otherwise, you're just leaving free money on the table. Once you've got all of those things taken care of, and that may include some of your debt if it's of that high interest rate category, then you can start taking a look at that other lower interest rate debt. The reason why I wanted to bring this up in particular was because many people have lower interest rate debt, especially if they're dealing with student loan debt that's 3%, 6% interest rate. This really means that you've got to get these other ducks in a row before you start tackling that debt. Now, number 3, take a look at the repayment options available to you. Don't be afraid to take advantage of those options that are on the table. So if you've got student loan debt, especially government student loan debt, take a look at the repayment programs that the government offers. They're actually really generous. I think now there's 6, 7, 8 student loan repayment programs that you can be a part of. So run the numbers, see what's the best strategy for you. You may even qualify for debt forgiveness. Now, if you have private student loans, there aren't as many options available to you, but you can talk to your lender and there might be certain discounts available. If you have credit card debt, on the other hand, there are also some repayment plans that you can choose. The first thing that I often will suggest to people is talk to your credit card company. They may be willing to lower your interest rate. You never know. Have a conversation with them, especially if you have a long-standing status with this credit card. They may be willing to lower your interest rate, which will ultimately lower your balance at the end and take less time to repay. Another thing to consider is potentially a balance transfer, where you transfer that balance on your credit card all the way over to another card with either a 0% or a lower interest rate. Now, there's many pros and cons to balance transfers, so I do suggest you take a look into the details, and the blog article that I shared will go into that. Another thing you might consider is a personal loan to pay off this debt. This is especially good for those of you who might say, credit cards are dangerous for me, I don't want to get into any more credit card debt. So the second to last question I really invite you to consider is, what can you put towards your debt? Now, be creative. This is a great time, especially if you've been waiting to start a side hustle. Consider starting a small side hustle to help you pay off this debt. Is there any side work that you can do outside of your current job to help you pay it off? Another thing to consider is if you got a raise or a bonus at the end of the year, maybe you put some or all of that money towards your debt repayment. And on the other side of the map, so we were talking about income, now let's talk about expenditure. Is there any way you can trim the fat in your budget while still having a fun time? One example I often like to use is my husband's mom, who absolutely loves to have a cup of coffee in the morning. Now, if she were to take a cup of coffee out of her budget, she would feel that so acutely. It would be something that went against her values. It would be something that really detracted from the enjoyment in her life. But there are a lot of other ways that she might choose to cut her budget. For instance, not spending as much on groceries is one way she might choose to cut her budget. There are lots of other little ways she could trim while not giving up the thing that mattered most to her. And my last debt repayment thing, number 5, is what will your life look like when you're debt-free? I think this is probably the most important question of the 5. If you are really going to go hardcore in pursuing this goal this year, you have to know the answer to this question. What will your life look like? Do you imagine living in a different place? Do you imagine spending your money on different things? Do you think you'll be able to save more, be able to give more? Really paint a picture of what your life will be like when you're debt-free. And write it down. Put up a picture around your house. The reason why that I suggest this is because paying off debt for many of us is a long process, and it's arduous, and it's easy to want to give up. Make sure you remind yourself of why you're doing this. Show your future around your house, in your wallet, on the background on your phone, whatever you need to do to make this motivation concrete. So now I'd love to hear your questions about debt. I'm going to take a look at the list over here and see if we've gotten any. Awesome, some really great comments here about emergency funds, which are super helpful, and reaching out to your credit card company. Please know you can add any question you like to the Facebook Live, even if you're watching later, and I will respond to your comment. I will go back in there. So I did promise that in addition to answering questions and giving some information about debt, that I was going to tell you about my brand new product that I'm going to be releasing next week. I don't have any giveaways today, but this is a really fun sneak peek. I am starting a date night club. What that means is for $5 a month, you can get an email in your inbox from me every single month. It's designed to help you have a money date night with your partner. So if you've been looking for a way to reconnect around your money life in 2019 and to reconnect with your partner at the same time, this is an absolutely fantastic product for you. I'm so excited to release this to my community. It's going to include an icebreaker question to help you get in the mood to talk about money. It's going to include a short video on a specific financial topic where I give you some education tips, kind of similar to my Facebook Live, but going a little deeper. Then we'll have some discussion questions to continue that conversation, and an activity or a worksheet that really helps you to dive deep into this topic. Find that you have some more work to do on that topic? Don't worry. You've got a couple more weeks before my next email will come out. This is a great way to connect with your partner around money and make those goals that you have in 2019 a reality. I want to make sure that you're fueling those goals, and I think being consistent in your conversations about money with your partner is a great way to do that. If you'd like to get more information about my date night club and maybe even subscribe, you can do that on my website. Again, that's gracepomeroy.com, and the link is in the post for this Facebook Live. I am so grateful that all of you were able to join me tonight. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your evening, or for those of you watching this weekend, I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend too. It's wonderful to have you all on the line, and if you need a helping hand as you're repaying that debt, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to walk you through creating a sustainable plan and coaching you all the way through. Regardless of whether or not you work with me, please know I'm cheering you on from the sidelines. Have a great Thursday night.